Once in a Lifetime by Cathy Kelly. Read by Jacqueline, Tong. Prologue. Star Bluestone had talked to bees all her life. She talked to her flowers too, murmuring to the rare yellow poppies she'd nurtured from seeds gathered in the old Italianate garden 30 miles away across the Wicklow hills. She and the young Kiwi gardener there had such great chats, he walking her through the orchard and reaching up to cradle a baby apple bud, the way another man might touch a woman. He understood that people who loved the soil talked to their plants and to the bees whose careful industry made their flowers bloom. Even though he was only 30 to Star's 60 years, he didn't think she was an eccentric old lady. Rather, he was impressed by Star's encyclopedic knowledge of plant life. His earnest, handsome face became animated when they talked. When she watched this kind boy, Star always remembered fondly that good gardeners make good lovers. Nobody capable of the tenderness required to separate delicate fronds of fern for replanting would ever be heavy-handed with another person's body. It had been a few years since Star had lain in a man's arms. She'd had many lovers, but the one she would remember for the rest of her life, the one whose memory was imprinted upon her skin, hadn't been a gardener. He'd been a poet, although that wasn't how most people knew him. To the world he was a conventional man, handsome certainly, with beautiful manners and an important job waiting for him. To her, he was the man who sat with her under the stars and recited poetry as he traced his fingers along her face and talked about their future. That had been over 35 years ago. Star talked to her flowers and her beloved bees in their white hives back then, too. When she'd been growing up, her school friends hadn't understood why Star did this, but they didn't question it. After all, Star was different in most things. So was her mother. Their mothers didn't grow herbs with such skill, or know how to brew potions of feverfew and chamomile to soothe menstrual cramps, nor did they stand gazing up at the midsummer moon. Eliza Bluestone did, and that it picked her out from all the other mothers in the small town of Ardagh was both a blessing and a curse to Star. The blessing was the knowledge her mother gave her. The curse was that knowing so much made her separate from all her friends. Eliza mightn't have told her daughter all the wisdom in her huge midnight dark eyes, but that knowledge somehow transferred itself to Star anyhow. When she was a lithe young girl of 20 and wanted to dance with her friends and flirt with young men, being wise was an impediment. She just knew that few people would be lucky enough to meet their soulmate in a pub 10 miles from their home. Finding the right man to be her husband was going to be hard, because the Bluestone family, which meant Star and her mother, were hardly conventional, and it would take a strong man to love them. In the same way, she knew that her friends would not all have the joy and happiness they expected in their lives, because not everybody could. It was obvious. To imagine anything else was folly. Though Star, like her mother, couldn't actually predict what would happen in the world, she had enough wisdom to understand the rules of the universe. While her friends threw themselves blindly into everything, and were surprised when the man they'd met at the club hadn't called, or shocked that other people could be bitchy, Star was never surprised by anything. As she grew older, Star's ability with her flowers and her garden grew. Talking to her plants wasn't the whole trick. Caring for them with reverence was, and Star did that, plucking weeds from around the orange-petalled fire dragon so it could breathe again, moving the old red currant bush away from the dry soil beside the shed, pausing occasionally in her labours to listen. For Star loved music. She never grew tired of hearing the distant singing of the church choir, even though she had never set foot in the building. This was another thing that set her apart from her friends. Star's church was the trees and the mountains and the mighty roar of the sea. And although she loved church music, she loved the music of nature better. The song of the bees was, her mother had taught her, the earth's song. Melodic and magnetic, with the bees moving to some ancient dance they'd moved to long before man came calling. And was there anything more uplifting than the sound of pigeons under the eaves, skittering about and squabbling,
Sample complete. Ready to continue?